Hey everybody, it's another edition of Bench Talk, courtesy of Empty the Bench. Tom Albano, Nick Fodera here, and we are being joined by a national writer for Baseball America, Kyle Glaser. Kyle, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to join you guys.
All right, so the reason we have Kyle on is because obviously we have all the talk about baseball. Baseball's back. Summer camp or spring training 2.0, or some will call it, is underway. However, there is another big topic going on about baseball talk, and that is with the minor leagues. So let's get right into it, Kyle. Obviously, the minor league season for 2020 is canceled to make way for all of the larger taxi squads and player pools. So, with this season canceled, what does this hold simply for the future for MILB?
Yeah, I mean, minor league baseball was facing a very uncertain future to begin with, just in the sense that Major League Baseball had already had some discussions about reducing the number of teams that are affiliated with Major League Baseball. And while that doesn't necessarily mean a lot of those minor league teams will be put out of business, just the cost of having to pay, players themselves with and all the insurance that comes with that would have been an extra $300,000 to $400,000 a year in expenses, which would have been a death knell to a lot of these teams. Being affiliated, having players that are part of a major league organization, and thus that means the major league team is paying those players. That's something that has been really the only way a lot of these minor league teams have been able to survive. There's very thin profit margins in minor league baseball. So telling some of them that, hey, you're going to lose your affiliation, have to spend $300,000-$400,000 a year in player salaries would have been a death knell to begin with. And now you're adding on, just the fact that there is no 2020 minor league season, and all the revenue they would have made is completely down the drain. Minor league teams are almost wholly dependent on ticket sales and attendance related expenses such as parking, merchandise, concessions, etc. There is no huge media deal. There is no huge revenue source in terms of corporate sponsorship. It's all local stuff, and it was already a difficult situation that has been made more difficult, and a lot of these minor league teams are not going to survive coming out of this.
So I have to ask Kyle, did minor league brass have a plan in place before the season was canceled to resume everything and to keep their players safe from coronavirus?
So there were, all sorts of plans and contingencies thrown out there. We were talking to some major league clubs that were not ready to concede that there wouldn't be a minor league season yet. As of early June, there was still some hope, albeit very small hope, but there was still some hope as recently as early June that, if cases and positivity rates continue to go down, maybe they could do something. It probably wasn't going to be the full minor league season that we're used to, but something involving, at least some minor league teams getting some players out to some locations. But once the number of cases surged, and more importantly, the positivity rate surged throughout the country and in so many states that host so many minor league teams. I mean, Florida and California host two entire leagues. The Texas League in Double A as well. While they're not all in Texas, there's some teams in Oklahoma and Arkansas. There's a lot of teams based there as well. And once you start seeing those states and some others kind of go the wrong direction in terms of testing and positivity rates, it became clear it just was not going to be feasible, and Major League Baseball was not going to be sending their minor leaguers all across the country to these hotspots.
What was the reaction to some of the minor leaguers that you talked to?
Yeah, I mean, there's also a tremendous amount of disappointment. I mean, these are guys who have devoted their entire lives to this game, and their goal is to reach the majors. And a lot of these guys, their development's pushed back a year. We've seen a lot of teams add their top prospects. It's their top 5, 10, 15, depending on where they are in terms of contending versus rebuilding. But a lot of other prospects that don't make that cut, they're kind of on their own, working out at home. The good news is these guys are all still getting paid. All 30 teams have committed to paying their minor leaguers $400 a week through at least July. And in some cases, that's actually more than pretty much anyone who's playing at Double A and below would make if they're playing in the season anyway. So it's not a lot of money, but there's not a lot of money in minor league baseball. So at least these guys are getting something right now. And again, in some cases, it's more they'd be making if there was a season. But in terms of the lost development time, in terms of their major league dreams being pushed back a year, it's tough on a lot of these guys, because a lot of these guys, they're a year away from a breakout. And all of a sudden, you go from maybe making your major league debut at 24 to now it's 25 or 26 with the year delay. That's a big difference in terms of, your attractiveness on to teams on the potential, free agent market down the road. I mean, there's a lot of effects that come from it that end up hurting these players.
Funny you should mention that, because the next question is, how will the cancellation of the season affect the progress of top prospects for major market teams? Your Davy Garcias, your Jason Dominguez's. And conversely, how does this affect the farm systems for the smaller market teams, your Royals, your Miami Marlins, those teams?
So it really depends on each team individually and where they are in their contending cycles, if you will, more than large market, small market. You look at a team like the A's; they're a small market team, but they're ready to contend right now. They're closer to how the Dodgers are handling their player pool than they are the Royals. It really just comes down to, for the teams that are ready to contend right now, it means they're going to keep mostly guys who are, able to help them in the major leagues this coming year. That could be some minor league veteran types who aren't top prospects, but maybe they can do something for the big league team, whether it's a extra reliever or a third, fourth catcher type. And then you also have, teams who are completely rebuilding, like the Marlins, who included 14 of their top 16 prospects entering the season, regardless of whatever level they were at. So it really just team by team and where you are competitively. I think for some of these guys, when you look at the guys who are 23, 22, 23, or in AAA, this doesn't hurt them too much because they were on the cusp of the majors and they're still on the cusp of the majors. You mentioned a guy like Jason Dominguez, who's 17, not getting to play that DSL season off the bat. It does push things back, but he's young enough to make up the reps and still shoot through a system and still potentially move quickly and be in the majors 21, 22. I think this really hurts the guy who's 20, 21, maybe has a year in low A. If he's able to progress step by step, maybe that gets him to the majors 23, 24. Now he misses a year. Maybe he needed a repeat year at that level, and all of a sudden things get pushed back. I think it's those guys who are, early 20s in full season ball. That's the guys who get hurt the most by this.
So somebody from like last year's draft, a year before, 2018's draft.
Or even like a 2017 high school pick, a guy like that. An example might be a guy like an Austin Beck with the A's, who was not included in the 60-man player pool. He was the 6th overall pick in 2017. Did not have a very good year last year at high Class A Stockton, but a lot of that, he kept having recurring lower body injuries. And so he was never really able to get going. He needed a repeat year at high this year. And maybe he comes out, he shows, hey, I'm healthy. Everything's clicking into place offensively. He moves to Double A at midseason, and all of a sudden, he could be in line for a big league promotion 2021. Now he's going to have to go back to high A again next year. He's not getting any reps because he's not part of the player pool. Show then that he's better. Have to contend with 2 new draft classes, really, of guys who are going to be coming up behind him, if you include the 2021 draft next summer. And then all of a sudden, maybe he's still stuck in high A and it's 23 and he hasn't been to Double A yet. That's the type of guy I think this really hurts.
How much do you think the minor leagues were brought up in the negotiations between the MLB and the MLBPA? Do you think the MLBPA made it like a point of theirs to ask about the minor leagues, or do you think both sides kind of just blew it off to a degree?
Well, the MLBPA does not represent minor league players. They only represent 40-man players. The only really things they deal with them is the draft. And so Major League Baseball and the MLB Players Association had a number of discussions about how long the draft would be this year. And part of the March agreement as well was the commissioner has the ability to push the international signing period back to next January, which he did as well. So the MLBPA, the only negotiations they really have regarding the minor leaguers is kind of their entry points, the draft and international signing period opening July 2nd. Once those guys get to the minor leagues, again, unless they're on 40-man rosters, MLBPA doesn't have much to do with them at all. And we've seen consistently they will trade the potential rights of those guys away for more rights for them at the major league. So this was 100%, kind of a Major League Baseball decision, of the decision to pay these guys $400 a week. That had nothing to do with the MLBPA. That was Major League Baseball telling all of its teams, hey, do this through May 31st. And then teams individually decide to do that on their own with some fits and starts. But currently now through July 31st, it's really MLB's discretion alone. The MLBPA doesn't really do a whole lot with these guys.
And now that the season, is canceled, plus you have more MLB stars opting out by the day. I think we're up to 8 at this point. But do you think that some mid to top level prospects are going to feel obligated to be a part of this 60-game season, even though they might not feel safe doing so?
Absolutely. So the guys that are opting out, for the most part, we've seen so far, are guys who are older, established, have made their money, have the financial wiggle room to opt out, and then also, are somewhat established with their teams. I mean, Joe Ross is a little bit of an exception here, but even he, he's 3-4 years into his career. He's been in the big leagues. He's shown he is a big leaguer. But for the younger guys who they don't really have a say in this, they can't afford to opt out of a season and not receive any pay whatsoever because they've mostly been on minor league wages. They're most of their lives so far, and for a lot of them, I mean, they're not established enough in the major leagues. They could say that, and their team could totally hold that against them and say, "Oh, it shows us how committed you are." I mean, it's ridiculous, but there are teams who think that way and teams who do that. So. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more wiggle room to opt out if you're a veteran player who's a proven commodity who's made his money compared to those, especially the mid-level prospects who are not priority guys in the organization but got put on the 60-man player pool and have a chance to come up, whether it's as a pitching depth type of arm or again, I mentioned that third, fourth catcher type of deal. It's really hard for those guys to say no, even if they're not fully comfortable with the health aspects of all of this.
Talking to Kyle Glaser, Baseball America. Kyle, next question, just to break off from the minor league side of things. So now that there are several positive tests around MLB from several teams, would there be less of a hidden popularity as thought if the 2020 season was actually canceled?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
So now that there are several positive tests around the league from several teams, would there be less of a hidden popularity as thought if the MLB season was canceled?
I mean, there's no question that the season was canceled because players and owners couldn't agree on a money structure in the midst of a financial pandemic and massive unemployment. That would have been a tremendous, tremendous blow to the game's popularity. Compared to, I think everyone understands that, if they get everything up and running and it just can't happen, it's not safe and they have to shut it down. That's much easier to understand and more valid. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think you can, if Major League Baseball ends up shutting down the season because it's not safe to play, I don't think you can criticize them for that. I mean, what would be, worse if they had tried to force it down. It would have been worse if they canceled because they couldn't figure the money aspects of it out, or if they try and force it, even when if tests, start coming back at alarming positive rates, that's where things would get dicey.
So, how many cuts can these organizations absorb and still be able to function as a viable affiliate? I mean, it's obvious that they're not going to be able to operate as they once did, but can they operate at all if they keep taking cuts?
Do you mean minor league player cuts?
I mean minor league organization cuts.
So the goal of the proposal that Major League Baseball had put forth toward minor league baseball was that each team would only have 5 affiliates domestically, 4 full season affiliates, 1 rookie league affiliate, as well as a DSL affiliate. There's been some discussions to try and keep a second rookie league affiliate in the complex leagues, whether that's in Arizona or Florida. But I mean, you're still looking at 40 teams that would lose their affiliations, and you take that, the number of players that get cut per organization as well. I mean, most teams, we saw them makes a lot of roster cuts in June, but a lot of those guys would have been cut at the end of the normal spring training anyway. There are going to be more player cuts. There's going to be a cut down of teams, and we are looking at, the proposal is 120 teams total, which, 40 teams, 25 players a team. That's 800 or so minor leaguers, plus guys who normally would have been on injured list. I mean, you can find a way to get to 1,000, fewer minor league jobs next year than they were, in 2019.
So that would mean, because now prior to this canceled 2020 season, we did have the 40-plus team rumor going around that the MLB may cut the 40 teams or whatever after those reports came out about how much really the minimum that minor leaguers can make now. So it seems like those plans are still on the table. Are they leagues like the New York Penn League, Northwestern League, some of these very small A clubs, and like the Gulf Coast teams?
Yeah, I mean, those are the teams that Major League Baseball has mostly talked about cutting. I realize I need to correct my math earlier. 40 times 25 is 1,000. So we are looking at 1,000 less jobs. But yeah, so mostly the leagues at Major League Baseball, they're looking to cut the Appalachian League. They're looking to cut a lot of teams in those short season leagues, as you mentioned. The Northwest League, they're talking about making that a full season league because some of those clubs are successful, and also would give some of those West Coast teams a lower Class A affiliate, more local. Right now, if you're the Giants or the Angels, your low Class A affiliate is halfway across the country in the Midwest League or all the way across the country in the South Atlantic League. The idea is to, maybe bring some of those teams a little bit closer so their low A affiliate is closer to home. But yeah, it's the short season leagues that are going to bear the brunt of this.
So this question is going to get a little abstract, so forgive me in advance. But does the image that these minor league baseball franchises have as smaller businesses hold up to what MLB wants them to be? I mean, does the minor league business model not fit with what Major League Baseball wants them to be?
Well, it's more the relationship, the terms of the relationship, I would say, is what doesn't fit what MLB wants it to be. Right now, teams have signed these player development contracts every 2 years with various minor league affiliates that, hey, we'll send you our guys, and you can be, one of our affiliates. And that changes every 2 years. And what inevitably happens is the places that have nice stadiums and good facilities and are really well run, stay stable. And then there's this group of teams that are at the bottom of the barrel that play in terrible stadiums with no fans and communities that don't care and owners that have no incentive to invest any more money into their franchise. Major league teams are scrambling to avoid having to play there, and inevitably someone's, the odd man out, if you will. So what their main concern is, well, there's a lot of concerns, but one of the things they're looking to fundamentally change is that instead of these 2 year scrambles, lock up these partnerships, if you will, for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, so that every 2 years, Major League Baseball teams aren't scrambling to try and find, their high affiliate for the next 2 years, and they do it all over again 2 years later.
So, again, if the MLB decides to eliminate their working relationship with the minor leagues completely, do they have any kind of replacement options, and are they even plausible?
They have threatened that, saying we'll, start our own sort of player development route. That, whether it's playing at college stadiums or doing any number of things. I think that's really a last case scenario. That's a nuclear option, if you will. The optimal result for both Major League Baseball and minor league baseball is for them to come to an agreement. That way, Major League Baseball doesn't have all the startup costs and the logistical issues of trying to start up a whole new player development system. And minor league baseball, the majority of their teams get to keep their affiliations and stay in what is, what can be a decently lucrative business if you handle it right. So, again, I think there have been threats of that nature. But it's not something that I think is really viable. It's more going to just come down to Major League Baseball and minor league baseball hammering it out, finding the 120 teams that get to keep their affiliations, and then for the 40 teams or more that get left out, because there might be a couple teams that lose affiliations. They've talked about moving some independent league teams into the ranks of the affiliated, but finding those teams that lose their affiliations alternative ways to still have professional baseball in their cities.
Now, last question. It's funny you mentioned that. Could you see a way, obviously, where MLB ends its relationship with MILB, but could you see it where, to a point, maybe they don't exactly have teams, but they have sort of a little bit of a taxi squad format like they're trying now and what you see right now in the NFL, or somehow use this thing, like we were talking about the cut teams just now, they had proposed this dream league. Could you see that not just being for like lower ends to try to sign into what is the high single A or double A, but can you see that dream league basically just being the entire minor league right now?
No. I mean, they're going to keep the minor league structure as it exists. There's no reason for them to cut the Durham Bulls, the Dayton Dragons, or any of these franchises that are really, really well run. They do a great job with player development. They're not trying to get rid of the entire minor leagues. They're trying to make them more efficient. They're trying to ensure their players are only playing in the highest quality facilities. They're trying to ensure that they're not spending 14 hours on buses to show up and play in stadiums that don't have proper training facilities in front of less than 100 fans. And look, there is some validity to that. Minor league baseball has done a really good job of kind of painting itself as this pastoral, simple, Americana, small town baseball dream, if you will. And there are some places that are like that. There are some cities and some franchises that really do a lot of great things in the local communities and provide baseball at an affordable cost for families all across the country. But like any business, there are some companies, if you will, in this case, some franchises that are very well run and some that are extremely poorly run, where again, the local community doesn't care, the stadium is decrepit, and there's just not really a great reason for the team to really exist other than, well, it's been here for a while. So Major League Baseball is trying to eliminate some of those teams, and they're not necessarily wrong to do so. Or I should say eliminate the relationship with those teams because it doesn't serve them or their players really any purpose. But are there 40 of those teams in 40 of those situations? Probably not. That's a pretty high number. And so we've seen some of the teams are talking about eliminating, truthfully, you can eliminate them without doing a whole lot of damage to the bottom line in terms of what percentage of attendance of the minor leagues, actually goes to that franchise's games. But there's also been some they've proposed that, average 3,000 plus fans a game, which for the minor leagues is really, really good. And, that's something Major League Baseball has to be very careful about here. If they want to, eliminate the weak link franchises, okay, but if they end up eliminating some of the stronger franchises with it, that's a lot of collateral damage.
Kyle Glaser, national writer for Baseball America. Some good talk on minor leagues and what the future holds. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Anytime.